So welcome to 11.9, our last lesson in this unit. We're going to be solving two-step equations of inequalities with negatives. If you've noticed, once we started two steps, I didn't have negatives in them. Now we are. All right, so let's learn how to solve a two-step equation or inequality with negatives. It's the same procedure. Right? So it's subtract 2, we add 2. 27 equals 3x, right? Divide both sides by 3, and 9 equals x. There was no negatives in that. That was a minus. So, but I see a negative in the other one. So what's the procedure? Well, if it's add 4, you subtract 4. X divided by negative 2 equals 8. So what do you do now? Well, you're being divided by negative 2. You got to multiply both sides by negative 2. Right? If x divided by negative 2 times negative 2 is x by itself. 8 times negative 2, though, is negative 16. What's the coefficient here, right? 9 is our constant. What is our coefficient? Hopefully you're saying negative 1. We'll talk about that. All right, so we're just going to have examples. So we're going to add 6 to both sides. X divided by 3 is greater than or equal to negative 10 plus 4, negative 4. Right? So we're just combining your rules of adding and subtracting negatives and multiplying and dividing negatives with solving equation procedure. It's the rules combined. When x is divided by 3, you multiply both sides by 3. X is greater than or equal to negative 12. Okay, now this one is going to have something tricky about it. Can you tell what it's going to be? Well, let's see. It's minus 4, you add 4. Oh no, we're not going to have anything tricky here. I apologize, that's coming. Negative 20 plus 4 is negative 16. Divide both sides by negative 2. And x equals negative 8. Now you're going to solve and graph it. We could have been doing this, right? So we're going to add 8 to both sides. X divided by 2 is greater than or equal to negative 3. Multiply both sides by 2. X is greater than or equal to negative 6. So we have to graph x is greater than or equal to negative 6. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5, negative 6. Close circle on negative 6, and we need the numbers greater than or equal to negative 6. That's graphing your solution, right? That's the solution. Now we graphed it. Okay, subtract 10 from both sides. 2x is less than negative 6. Divide both sides by 2. X is less than negative 3. Negative 1, negative 2, negative 3. Open circle on negative 3. We need the numbers less than negative 3. All the numbers that make it true are less than negative 3. All right, so there is a coefficient of negative 1. So let's see that. The procedure is the same. You add 1, add 5 to both sides. I like to write the negative 1 in there, right? So I don't forget to do the next step, right? So the next step, you've got to divide both sides by negative 1. And get x equals negative 13. Negative x equals 13 is not the solution. We want x, not opposite of x. Okay, so you have this, make sure you do that final step. That is a two-step equation. There is a coefficient there of negative 1. Right, the coefficient there is negative 1, and you have to divide both sides by negative 1. Same thing here. If you want to write it in right off the bat, you can. Subtract 7 from both sides. 5 minus 7 is negative 2, right? Same as 5 plus negative 7 equals negative 1x. Divide both sides by negative 1. Negative 2 divided by negative 1, positive 2 is the only number that makes this true. Now let me go over this. 5 equals negative blank plus 7. Right? The only number that can go in there is positive 2. Okay? Now let's look at the last one, just to go back on the same idea. It was negative blank minus 5 equals 8. The only number that could go in there was negative 13, because you needed the negative, the opposite of negative 13 to make it true. All right, so this is 9 minus 2x. That, I've talked about this before. Minus signs turn into negative automatically without work. But what do you do first here? I talked about this. You subtract 9, because if you add 9 there, you get 18 here. You don't get 0, right? We're trying to make that go away. That minus goes with the 2x. It does not, and it turns into a negative 2x. So you are subtracting 9 from both sides. right? We were always doing what's in front of that constant. That's the constant on the same side. In front of there is a positive that we don't write. So 19 minus 9 is 10. Divide both sides by -2. 10 divided by -2 is -5 equals x. So what do you do here? It's -7. We add 7 to both sides. That minus goes with the 3x and makes -3x equals 15. Divide both sides by -3, x equals -5. A candle starts at 10 inches tall and burns 2 inches per hour. Write and solve an equation to find the number of hours it was burning if it is currently 3 inches tall. Now, we've talked about this. If you're burning 2 inches per hour, our coefficient is not 2. It's -2. It's going down 2 inches per hour. So, but this one starts at 10 inches. It's not it has a start point of 10. And so we're doing an equation, and then this is the total. Now notice, a lot of them, the biggest number goes over on the right. But because of the burning of the candle, we have a negative rate, and the biggest number, we're going down to 3. The total is 3. We start higher. So let's solve this now. Subtract 10 from both sides. You get -2h. 3 minus 10, -7. Divide both sides by -2. And this is what's going to happen. You're going to get 2 negatives, and that makes a positive here. Now 6 divided by 2 is 3. This is 3.5, positive 3.5 hours, right? You switch the 3 and the 10, you're not going to get, and you do the math correctly, you're not going to get the right number. You might get the opposite, and -3.5 hours would mean you went back in time 3.5 hours, which you could word a problem that way, but typically we don't. All right, now, there's finally the trickiness I alluded to earlier in this lesson. One of these, you do something tricky. Let's see. It's add 8. We subtract 8 on both sides. Right? So they both seem to start the same way. This one is -4x greater than 20 minus 8, 12. This is 4x greater than, -20 minus 8, -28. Now, what do we do next? Well, we divide both sides here by -4. And we get x, and 12 divided by -4 is -3. Over there, we divide both sides by 4, and we get x, and we get -7. But in one of these, we have to flip the symbol. Why do we have to flip the symbol? Anytime you multiply or divide both sides by a negative, the symbol gets flipped, right? And so you're doing all this work, you're dealing with your negatives and the procedure, and you've got to remember that anytime you divide both sides by a negative, you flip the symbol. But the key is you can tell right away, and it's usually caused by the fact that the coefficient of x is negative. And it also can be a number. When the number is below x, we don't call it a coefficient anymore. But when the coefficient of x is negative, that's when you end up flipping the symbol, not just because there's a negative in the problem. Yes, you have to be able to do this with letters. So we have y equals -ax plus b. We're solving for x. So we add b, so it's subtract b from both sides. Y minus b equals -ax. What do you do to both sides? You divide both sides by -a. And so the answer is y minus b divided by the opposite of a, or -a. Let's practice. So here we're adding 9 to both sides. -4 plus 9 is 5. I like to write the -1. There's a -1 coefficient there, so I don't forget. Divide both sides by -1. So, right, the answer is -5. That's what would make that true. -4, the original equation was -4 equals blank minus 9. And the only number that can make that all true is putting in -5. You get the opposite of -5 minus 9 does equal -4. No other number makes it true. You add 8 to both sides here. X divided by -6 is less than 7. We're going to multiply both sides by -6. X and -42. What do I got to do? We have to flip the symbol. We multiplied both sides by a negative number. Right? This is not, we don't consider that a coefficient because it's dividing x. but it still causes the same thing. Same thing here. You're subtracting 10 here because there's a positive 10 there. And this minus goes with the 3x. So that's where you use the minus. It becomes negative 3x. Negative 3x equals 27. Divide both sides by negative 3. X equals negative 9. A tank sprang a leak and the water level started to drop, just like a candle burns down, from 18 meters at a rate of 2 meters per hour. So it's going down 2 meters per hour, but starts at 18. That's our constant. And we want to know how long it will take the water level to drop to exactly 3 meters. That's the equation. Subtract 18 from both sides. Negative 2h equals 3 minus 18, negative 15. Divide by negative 2. 14 divided by 2 is 7. This is 7.5 hours. Good luck on the homework.